You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody. I bet a few of you did a bit of a double take when that music came on, didn't you? Don't worry, you've still downloaded Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, and this is still me, Mighty Blue. And yes, this is episode number 107 of the show, and it follows a very similar pattern to the normal shows, though there are differences. And the reason for those differences is that the day that this show is released, Thursday, I'll be flying away from the US for about 4.5 months, and it isn't really practical for me to do the show in the way that I normally do it. However, this show still has a guest, and she is a lovely guest. This week we have Deanna McGregor, and Deanna was recorded in 2 separate conversations. The first was back in May on, in fact, the very day that Deanna was flying, much like me, to Europe to hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain. She had already hiked the Camino last year, in fact, and she had found it to be a very powerful experience. This year she was going to be sharing the Camino with her 2 youngest sons, Daniel and Jonathan, respectively 12 and 16 years old. So this first interview is about her hiking life to date, her thoughts on her impending hike, and a few words about her friendship and kind of collaboration with America's hiking sweetheart, Dixie. I held back this interview because I wanted to hear how the hike with the boys turned out, and as I said, I wanted it to be the introductory episode to my own Camino journey, which starts on October the 10th. Sandwiched between the 2 conversations with Deanna, I have something of an answer to one of the main questions I'm asked. What insurance and associated options are available to hikers and climbers, and in fact others involved in potentially dangerous situations all over the world? This conversation with Dan Richards of Global Rescue came out of an initial chat I had with a young woman at the outdoor retailer's summer market in Denver, and after being passed on to a number of different people to speak with, we came up with something that turned out to be far more interesting than I'd ever imagined it would be. There's a bit of a clue in the title, Global Rescue. Dan will be coming along after Deanna's first chat. This and my impending departure means that I'm postponing the readings of The Year We Seized the Day until I finish the Camino. It will also allow my lovely niece Laura to get a few episodes in the can before we resume. Currently, she's sunning herself with her family in Cyprus, so it all worked out. So let's get on with the first go-round with Deanna McGregor. There's a bit of a sound trouble for the first 6 minutes, but it seems to settle down after that. Here's Deanna. Okay, we're on today with Deanna McGregor. Hi, Deanna. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, good. And it's just Deanna, isn't it?
Yes, Deanna.
And I guess that because your trail name is Deanna Banana, which is a fantastic name.
Oh.
Who gave you that?
I actually got it in college. So,
oh, did you?
Yeah, just one of my coworkers called me Deanna Banana. And my trail name is actually Mary Poppins.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were trying. I had you in as Deanna Banana the whole time in my notes.
Well, it's because on my Facebook page, it says Deanna Banana. And for a long time, I was Deanna Banana on Facebook, but Facebook made me change my name to my real name.
They presume nobody would be called Deanna Banana.
Yeah, I'd rather be called Deanna Banana.
Okay.
But no, my trail name is Mary Poppins because I carry an umbrella. And
oh, really?
Yeah, in
people seem to be using those more and more these days, don't they?
I love mine because I hate rain gear. I hate raincoats. And so not only does it protect me from the sun, but it protects me from the rain so that I don't have to wear, a raincoat that makes me all sweaty.
I notice more and more people are using using them these days more to protect themselves from the sun than rain, I thought.
Right. Well, I use it for both. So
how do you do it? What do you do? Do you attach it to your pack?
I slip it because I use trekking poles. So I slip the handle underneath one of my shoulder straps, and it kind of works. And then there's some little loopy things that I stick the handle in so that it's nice and stable and just, walk
Cool.
along. So it's attached to my pack, and I can use my trekking poles too.
So what is your hiking background, and when did the madness take hold of you? I mean, I know when we spoke before, you said you did a bit of hiking as a teenager. What did you do then?
I went hiking as a teenager, mainly with church groups. Then my
Uh-huh.
grandma signed me up for these hiking adventures over the summer, and I think I started going to the Wallowas in Oregon, and then the
Uh-huh.
next year we hiked in the Mount Rainier area, and then I think the last trip was down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
How high do you go on Mount Rainier? Do you go right up there?
I was 15, so no, we didn't
All
go
right.
to the top. It was just in the area. No, I was really young and don't remember. I mean, I remember how beautiful it was and how much I loved the backpacking and how much I really loved the camaraderie of fellow backpackers and sitting around the fire at night. Um,
Yeah.
and so that stuck with me. But
That seems to
then,
be most people's takeaway.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I am a social hiker. I know a lot of people like to get away and disappear into the woods and not have anybody around, but I
Yeah.
really like having other people around when I'm backpacking because I like to get to know them and their
Yeah.
stories. And for
Cool.
me, that's just part of it.
So what was the Grand Canyon like? Because I've whitewater rafted in the canyon for 6 days and 5 nights, or about 16
Oh,
years ago,
that's
and we did
awesome.
about 170 odd miles in a whitewater raft, and it seemed like a steep old hike up those sides. What was that like?
It was hot. I guess we did it in
Really?
August.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
It was
Oh,
hot but it was, it was really amazing. I thought it would be different though, but when you get down into the canyon, it looks basically like you're just looking up at mountains. So that's what I remember the most. I'm like, I think it's almost prettier from the top than it is from the bottom, but that's
Oh,
just me.
well, I loved it because there were parts of it because you're on the Colorado. We were on the Colorado River, obviously, and there were parts of it which didn't appear to be much more than about 20 yards wide on both sides. Went up for nearly a mile. It
Oh,
was,
wow.
just an amazing, amazing thing. Now, I know you probably had a few other things to concern yourself about in the earlier part of your life, and there's a clue in your email address, woman, woman in the shoe. Tell everybody what that's all about.
Um, I have 8 children. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
I'm the old woman who lived in a shoe with so many children, she didn't know what to do. Yeah.
So that probably
Yeah.
put the hiking on some sort of hold, didn't it?
It did, for a long time from the time well, I went to college and then I did a lot of traveling, and, lived overseas for a while, and then I got married and had babies, and so hiking was just kind of put on the back burner. Whenever I go visit my
Yeah.
parents in California, I would hike, asked to go hiking, and we would do that, but they were just little short day hikes.
So it was still always there, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was always there. And then when I turned 50, I was approaching my 50th birthday. There was a friend of mine who had posted on Facebook. He was turning 40 and he hiked 40 miles on his
Mhm.
40th birthday. And I knew that there was no way I was going to hike 50 miles on my 50th birthday, but I thought, hey, what a great thing. Maybe I'll just spend the week hiking 50 miles.
Yeah.
And so I did a search on the internet and came up with a hike that was a little bit more than 50 miles. It was 200 miles, but it was Wainwright's Coast to Coast.
That's a lot more than 50 miles.
It's a lot more than 50 miles.
So tell us about Wainwright's Coast to Coast. Where does it start? Did you go on the East Coast first or the West Coast first?
The West Coast.
All right. And where's it
It
from?
starts in St. Bees, and then
Uh-huh.
it ends in Robin Hood's Bay.
St.
Um,
Bees is is it Northumberland, I think it is, or Northumbria?
I don't
It's
know.
right up on the
It's
yeah.
in England.
I should know coming from England. Yeah. So what sort of hike is it? Is it bed and breakfast, or can you camp, or what?
Oh, I did a little bit of everything. I camped, I did bed and breakfast, I stayed
Yeah.
in, bunkhouses, I stayed in a farm. I wanted, a varied experience, so I did a little bit of everything.
And you
Yeah,
did that by yourself? Did that by
I
yourself?
did. Well, I was with my friend for the first 4 days,
Right.
but she ended up, had planned a cruise. And so she left me after 4 days, after the lake just
How'd that feel?
I cried. I stood on the other side of I watched her walk away on the other side of the lake to go off to her cruise, and I cried because I was gonna be all by myself. And that first day by myself walking was awful. I called her and I said that I thought that I was just gonna pack up everything and go to London and enjoy the rest of the trip in London. And, but
What was it you didn't like about it then? The solitude?
the solitude, the getting lost, because I got lost all the time on that one. Because there's no, specified path, you kind of have to find there's a path, but you have to find the path. There's no
Uh-huh.
signs, to show you the way,
Really?
and, you have a
Oh.
guidebook that leads you and tells you, "Oh, turn at these 3 trees," and I'm standing in the
Oh,
middle of the
right.
field going, "Where are the 3 trees? I can't find the 3 trees."
Had you been relying upon your friend to lead the way?
No, in the Lake District, it was a little bit easier, because there were a lot of other people walking through the Lake District, and, there was only, like, one path, but then by the time she left, I was going through pastures and, over stiles,
Yeah.
trying to find my way across. At one point, I was walking along thinking I'm on the right path, and I end up, at a, stone wall. And I'm like, "Okay, so this isn't exactly where I'm supposed to be." So basically,
This can't be right.
I took out my compass and I'm like, "I know I'm supposed to go east." So I went east. So I actually
Uh-huh.
used my compass on that one to get myself unlost. And luckily I found the bridge.
So you had a few days by yourself, or was it a week by yourself? Because if you were scared, what happened?
I was 10 days by myself. And
Yeah.
I it was one of the best experiences of my life. I got brave. It changed my whole attitude. I felt like I could do anything. Once I finished that, I knew that I could do anything that I set my mind to.
Wow.
So
And so had the doubt been before because you didn't like hiking by yourself?
I it, I don't know that it was that I didn't like hiking by myself. It was just a fear. I was just really afraid. I was afraid of getting lost. I was afraid of failing. I didn't like getting lost. Um,
It's funny, that seems to be a theme through a lot of people. When I asked the people, I had a little section of the show called Fear and Loathing on the Appalachian Trail about 6 months ago, and it was about people's fear of not finishing and being scared to be alone were two of the main things. So,
mhm.
once you face those fears, you realize how nice it is, don't you?
Mhm. It was really nice. I guess I did miss the companionship. I wasn't afraid like somebody was gonna attack me, and of course there's, no bears gonna attack me in
Yeah.
England. But, I you get inside your head a lot and you start overthinking everything. And so
Yes.
I started listening to, books, while I was walking, and,
Nice, nice.
that really, that made it just wonderful. It was just like
Yeah, I'm
gave me
sure.
time on my own to listen to books, and I wasn't overthinking everything, and I wasn't lonely anymore.
Sure, with 8 kids at home, that your book reading is somewhat limited, isn't it? I would
Yeah,
imagine.
that's
Uh,
true. Yeah, at that point,
so
that's true.
so where else did you hike in my old home country?
I, have done the West Highland Way and the Great Glen Way,
What
so,
were they
that's
similar
in
hikes?
Scotland, but
Yeah, I do know, I do know. At convenient times, we count the Scots as part of my home country.
Right,
Uh,
well, yeah, they tried to get out of that, but
yeah, I know, I know. And I know from your name, obviously, that's some sort of connection with McGregor. Um,
yeah,
so what's your
I married a
There
Scot.
we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your other connection with the UK? And you've got to share this, I'm afraid. I already know what the answer is. When you were younger.
When I was younger, when I was 18?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
Just the time.
I was an exchange student in Denmark, and, my friend joined me, you know, she just came over on vacation, and we went over, to England and, hitchhiked around because Brit Rail was on strike, and so we had these Brit Rail
Always are.
passes. I know we had the Brit Rail passes, and they were no good then, so we hitchhiked around England, and we loved both of us loved England because we love the Beatles, and I had found a book in my grandma's house, A Hard Day's Night, just a
Mm.
soft cover book, and I read that. And before even listening to their music, I fell in love with the Beatles just from this book. And then I've listened to the music, and it was even better. And so we were kind of on you know, uh, a quest,
You were-
to experience all things Beatles. And uh, so,
Awesome, awesome. Now, the reason we're speaking this morning is that you are about to leave to do the Camino de Santiago
yeah,
today.
we're leaving tonight. That's right.
Yeah. So, and this isn't your first time doing it.
Are you there?
Tell me first of all about the first time you did it.
The first time, that was last year.
Hmm.
And I wanted to go on an adventure, and I was looking for long trails because I like longer trails.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for the AT or the PCT. I just didn't have enough time, and I'm a completist, so if I started, I want to finish it.
All right.
And so I again, through researching on the internet, found the Camino, and so I booked all the flights, and I went over there, and things, I expected just an adventure, but
Yeah.
things in my life at that time, which I won't go into, they got
Uh-huh.
crazy in my home life, in my
Uh-huh.
personal life.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being uh, a very spiritual, emotional experience. And in fact, probably one of the most profound spiritual and emotional experiences of my life.
Wow. That was
Yeah.
circumstance, or was that the hike itself, do you think?
I think it's probably the combination. I don't know that you can separate the two. I mean, you do bring in your life, your personal life into the hikes, and it'd be nice if we could, sometimes just escape all of that. I think that sometimes a lot of people do try to escape by running into the woods, but everything is still in your head. And so a lot of times when we're walking along, we're working out those demons maybe in our heads.
Those insoluble problems, aren't they, sometimes? And
Yeah.
it's difficult to get a handle on them. So was the feel of the Camino a hike, or was it for you, or did it develop into a bit of a pilgrimage?
Oh, it was absolutely a pilgrimage. Absolutely. I started off just wanting to hike because it's a Catholic pilgrimage. It's been around
Yeah.
for 1,000 years, but I'm
Yeah.
not Catholic.
Yeah.
I believe in God, and I'm a spiritual person, but I'm absolutely not Catholic. But I kind of became an honorary Catholic um, on the Camino. I stopped in every little chapel, and of course all the big cathedrals, and I took a moment to like meditate and to pray, and sometimes I would just be crying, just from the spiritual experience I was having through prayer and meditation.
So it was the whole journey, not just the churches. Because the churches, I saw that Martin Sheen movie because I'm hoping to do the Camino myself, and I saw that Martin Sheen movie, and he went into some beautiful cathedrals. So did you
I
try
tried
to
to
hit
hit
all
all
of
of them.
those then?
Yeah, I did. I missed Leon
Yeah.
because it wasn't. By the time I got there, it was closed, and I wanted to leave early in the morning. So I missed that one. But so it's on the plan for this time. I'm not going to miss it this time. I heard it's beautiful.
Yeah. So this time is going to be different. You're going this year with company. Who are you taking with you
I'm
this year?
taking, I think, a little bit under duress, my 16-year-old son, Jonathan, and my 13-year-old son, Daniel. And Jonathan went with me on the
And
West Highland Way and the Great Glen Way, so he has
all
some
right,
hiking
right.
experience. But poor Daniel, his first long distance hike is a 500-mile hike, and we're a little bit worried about him.
So was it his choice, or this is where we're going?
My 13-year-old is actually the one who chose the Camino. We were
Uh-huh.
researching on the internet again, the AT and the PCT,
Yeah.
parts of the PCT, maybe Oregon, parts of the AT, and then other long distance hikes. And I actually, thought about a hike in England, like Cotswold Way and part of that, or the Portuguese Way. But
Yeah.
Daniel
Nice.
decided that we should go to Spain. He just felt really good about that. And since he was the one who was kind of being drug along on this, because he's never done a long distance hike, we thought that we should honor his request. And he's been studying Spanish. So that's why we're going to Spain.
Oh, is it? Oh, that is really cool. That is very cool, isn't it? So, does the spiritual element of a Camino, does that enhance it? Does that diminish it? Do you think? Or what is it that does it elevate? Does it elevate a hike
Oh,
for you?
absolutely. It's um, anything added to a hike elevates it, I think. Of course, there's always the physical in a hike, and sometimes
Mm.
there's the emotional, when you're going up a mountain and you're hating it because it's never ending. But,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Sure.
even non-believers start praying then when it's raining and you're hiking up a mountain. But of course, the
Yeah.
spiritual always adds. Now, we told my son, my 16-year-old, um, that we're taking spirituality off the table, because he was convinced that
Oh,
we just
interesting.
wanted him to go to have a spiritual experience. And, he's 16, he kind of wasn't into that. And I said, no,
Yeah.
we can't make you have a spiritual experience. It kind of doesn't work that way. So we're taking
No, no.
spirituality off the table, and we're just going to, you know, have a fun hike. And then if something great happens beyond that, then great.
Yeah, exactly. So what was it? So what was the moment like for you? Because it became something. It's like an AT hiker finishing on the top of Guitar. And once you got to the door, and then you go inside and touch St. James, the statue of St. James, don't you, to finish your hike? Or did you go on to
I went on to
Finisterre?
Finisterre. I did.
Oh, you did.
What was
Okay.
it like to touch the statue of St. James? Well, you stand in this really, really long line, and you
Oh,
go
oh
and you
dear,
touch the
that
back of
takes
the
a while.
statue and hug the back of the statue, and it was kind of one of those meh moments. But I went down into where there was no line. I went down to the bottom of the cathedral where supposedly the bones of St. James are kept in this silver little coffin-shaped container.
Yeah.
Um, Smaller than a coffin though. And, I had a very spiritual experience there. I don't know if St. James is buried there, probably not because I think that they just put some bones there so that they could build a cathedral so people would come, and
Yeah.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I had a prayer, or I said a prayer, just to thank St. James for the work that he did, whether his bones were there or not, didn't matter. But he tried to make the world better by preaching that people should be kind to one another, and preaching forgiveness, and
Yeah.
preaching good things that Christ had talked about. Not to get all religious here, but
Oh.
and so I just had a spiritual experience that way, just saying thank you for being a good person, and for trying to make the world better.
I have a similar type thing myself. When I go to the UK and go to where my father and my mother have been cremated, and I go to touch the tree, and it is a focal point. Is more than
Uh-huh.
anything else for me, and I talk to them, even though I know, or in my mind, I know they're not there, they don't exist anymore. But that focal point is really, really important.
Mhm.
I think anyway, and that's why people do that sort of
Yeah,
thing,
I
as far as
think
I'm
human
concerned.
beings need that kind of a focal point for some reason. I don't understand,
I
but
agree. I agree.
for some people though it's just being out in the woods, and that's, and I get that
Oh
out in the
yeah.
woods too.
Yeah. So you said you didn't think you were ready for the AT. Do you think you're actually before we go on to the AT? I'll come back to that in a second. Did if your preparations for this year's hike, because you're going with the boys, change from your preparations for last year's hike, or did you learn stuff on there that you didn't need and stuff that perhaps you did need when you're doing the
I did
Camino?
really well on the Camino. I The only thing extra I had was a knitting project, which I thought, oh, I'll want to knit, at the end of the day, because I love to knit. And of course, I was too tired by the end of the day. So I'm not bringing a knitting project this
Yeah.
time. But I was down to two outfits, one to wear and one to wash, and which I know the AT
Mhm.
sometimes they only have one outfit or shorts and shirt, and then
Yes.
um, I
Yeah.
had a silk sleeping liner that I slept in, very minimal everything, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, a small pack in your back really helps, doesn't it?
It
So
does.
is that gonna change if you encourage the boys to be minimalist as well?
I have encouraged that, but I'm finding myself packing my first aid kit a little bit too heavy because, being the mom, I'm worried. Oh, what if they have this, and what if this happens? What if this happens? And so I'm going to today before we leave take out some of the things because you know what? They actually have pharmacies in Spain, and so I
Yes,
can
yes.
actually stop and get what I need there. So
So you don't have to carry food, I presume, apart from just a snack during the day, because you literally go from village to village, don't you, or town to town?
right, I carried at least a meal with me at all times because
Right.
the one time that I did not, and I'm like, oh, I'll just get something in the next town. The
Yeah.
next town didn't come for for like 15 miles, and I was starving.
So how about water?
I usually carry about a liter and a half of water. And there are fountains in every town where you can fill up your water
Yeah.
bottles. A lot of people just had water bottles. I use the bladder and the camelback bladder.
I want to do this in October, the same hike. So I'm kind of wondering how little I can take. So there's no places to camp on there, are there? Or did you stay at is it the auberges every night?
I stayed at the albergues. I researched camping because I thought that would be fun too. And
Right.
it's kind of discouraged. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
places to camp. So, but the
Right.
albergues are great. They're very inexpensive, and like I said, I like the camaraderie of the other hikers, the pilgrims.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Quite agree. Now, one last thing, which is about a lot of people may know your name and wonder who's Deanna McGregor they're thinking. And you are associated with Jessica Mills, Dixie.
I
And
am.
this is more, yeah. And I kind of was interested in how you got associated with her because you don't live anywhere near her, do you?
No, I don't.
So how did that happen? Because I know people love Jessica or Dixie, and would love to hear how that happened.
Well, um, I was living in Maine for about 6 months, and I was looking on YouTube for hiking videos and came across hers. And she only had like 1,000 subscribers at the time. And I was so into her hikes and stuff that at the end, when she was supposed to be finishing,
Yeah,
she, wasn't posting right away. And so I was worried, and I was even posting on Facebook, oh my gosh, I wonder if this girl finished, and not knowing her at all. And my Facebook friends are like, you're weird,
yeah,
Deanna, to be worried so much about this girl. So anyway, but in
yeah,
Maine, I ended up hiking Katahdin, which kicked my butt.
yeah.
I literally when I was coming off of Katahdin, I was so afraid of heights that I scooted down on my tushy all the way down, and I had worn a hole in my bum, in the bum area of my, leggings. So,
Oh
I'm,
my
like,
god,
walking down Katahdin with my bum hanging out. Yeah, that happened.
classy, classy.
Yeah. So, because of this, I, messaged her, um, asking her if Katahdin was, if the whole AT was like Katahdin, and, because I was terrified. It's like, I wanna do the AT, but, oh my gosh, Katahdin
Mm,
was so hard, and, she reassured me that Katahdin was one of the hardest parts, and so after just because of that, and, I don't know, we messaged back and forth a few times, and then, she started the backpacking forum, and then
yeah,
when she, was going to start the PCT a couple of months before, she asked me to, moderate the forum to help moderate the forum because both she and Kyle were gonna be on the trail,
sure.
and, so I said, "Sure," and then, we just kind of developed, a friendship,
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, she's something, isn't she?
Oh,
So she said to you. So she said to you that the AT, it was not all like that. So
no.
are you saving that for a few more years, or do you think you're going to get to it one day?
I really hope to do it next year, but I have all these
Oh,
kids, right? And
yes, exactly. Yeah.
they kinda wanna come home from college for the summer, and I kinda wanna see them, and so that's my big problem. Darn kids wanting to come home from college.
Get them to come and visit you on the trail then.
Oh, yeah, no. We've invited some of them to go even with us to Spain, and they're like, "Nope, nope, nope." They're not hikers.
Oh, oh dear. Oh dear. So you say you're going tonight to the Camino. When do you actually start the hike?
We don't start until Sunday evening. We're going to
Right.
go visit, my kids, in France. We're flying
Oh,
into Paris, and one of my daughters is a nanny, in
nice.
Paris, and so we're staying with
Oh,
her, and my daughter who works in Switzerland is flying in or driving in. I'm not even sure how she's getting to Paris, but so she's joining us. So we're gonna have 3 days in Paris with,
cool.
my
Oh,
2
cool.
daughters, 2 of my daughters and my sons.
Well, when you get back, would you be so kind as to come back on the show and tell us how it went?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm
That'd
sure
be,
I'm sure I'll have lots of, fun stories to tell about taking these 2
I'm sure
teenage
you will.
boys across.
Exactly. That's the bit I want to hear about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good
all the
luck with it.
drama.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, good luck with it. I hope it goes really well. And thanks for sharing the story with us. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Have a great time.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, bye.
Isn't that amazing? She gained strength when her friend left to go on a cruise. She then realised she could do anything. The times that we've heard similar stories from women who didn't feel confident make me realise that society still has a long way to go to reach the full potential of some of our sisters. As you can hear, Deanna is an articulate, if a little nervous about speaking on mic, and she's grown up as a person because of hiking by herself. I'll be returning for a shorter chat with Deanna after I speak with Dan Richards, but I just want to remind you that the Camino episodes will likely be quite a bit shorter with my reflections of the hike along with those of my fellow pilgrims. To be honest, the logistics of doing this on the trail have been a bit overwhelming for me, so I want to say a big special thank you to Ryan Hopkins, a young man from Florida State University. Ryan asked me a while ago how or if he could help me with the show. He put together some really interesting social media strategies, which I still intend to implement. But when I reached out back to him a couple of weeks ago, he readily jumped in and he's going to edit my audio and put it where it needs to be to make sure that it's available for our listeners at the normal time. This is about a third of my age. My guess is that the things that to me are laborious will become a piece of cake for him. So I hope that you'll join me in thanking Ryan for his work. Now, with a totally unexpected delight, I spoke with Dan Richards of Global Rescue. In this chat, you'll actually hear my brain ticking as I realised that Dan isn't quite who I thought he was. However, he turned out to be much, much more valuable in terms of information than I could have dreamed. Here's Dan. Okay, now insurance normally makes people's eyes utterly glaze over, and we're going to try to avoid that today and not talk in jargon. I'd like to introduce you to Dan Richards, and Dan's the CEO of Global Rescue. Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on and talk to us about this because I know it's always a little difficult to talk about insurance in terms that everybody can understand. So, first of all, tell us a little bit more about what Global Rescue does.
Global Rescue provides travel risk crisis management and response services, which is really just a fancy way of saying that we help people in difficult situations around the world. We rescue them from the field. We have a worldwide field rescue service, and we also evacuate and transport people from locations once we get them out of the field home. So we provide medical services and security services and other kinds of services that you or your loved ones or other people that you care about might need on a difficult day. Let's
So
just
you
say.
the guys who respond to that emergency button on the spot or the in-reach rescue. Is that the sort of thing you guys do?
Absolutely. And our customers program us in so that the notification does come directly to us and so that we can be notified and be the responders when, in fact, they do have an emergency. Absolutely.
So what happens? The button goes, you get called, and it's somewhere in the middle. And I use the example of the John Muir Trail because I was there for a couple of days last year and the year before. I didn't need rescue, and I just had to get off the mountain each time. So you just find out what the situation is, and you work out what resources you need to get there. Is it generally a helicopter in and out?
Well, it really just depends. If you're on a trail where there is really thick canopy, then helicopters don't function too well
Yeah.
navigating among the trees. So
Yeah.
we need to get you to a landing zone where we can actually get a helicopter in. We do quarterback those sorts of events with some frequency. We will deploy a ground team to your location. Once we get you to an LZ, then we'll deploy a helicopter and we'll hopefully be able to pluck you out and get you to care that would be close by, depending on where you are.
LZ, I presume, is landing zone, is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, sorry
Okay.
for the acronym.
We've got to cut all this jargon out. It's never going to work for people.
Right.
So you got a land team. So up to how many people can be involved in this sort of rescue?
Boy, anywhere from just a few to dozens or hundreds. We've been involved
Wow.
in basically every major event of the last 14 years since we were founded in 2004. So big events like the Arab Spring, like the earthquakes in Nepal and in Haiti, the aftermath of the Japan tsunami, and those sorts of events typically require a much more comprehensive response than obviously a one-off, either car accident or someone who might be hiking or traversing, even in a semi-remote part of the world like Nepal, for instance.
Yeah.
You can prosecute those rescues with just a handful of people, but when it comes to dozens or hundreds or thousands that might have been impacted, then obviously that's just a totally different scale.
Let's cut it back to something that our listeners generally will be more au fait with, I guess. Say I don't know, somebody falls sick badly sick, or breaks a leg, say. I hate the idea of that, but breaks a leg falling somewhere on the AT. You'd be the sort of guys who'd be called in for that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And the way that our services are set up, we're actually a membership. We're actually not insurance. We're a membership. And the best way to probably think about us is a little bit like AAA, but not for your car, for your body.
Right.
So when you call AAA or the auto club, the wrecker shows up and they tow your car away and you never get a bill for it. Well, when we get asked to respond, we show up and we'll come and get your body and take that away, and you never get a bill for it, just like you were a AAA member. In the U.S., rescue is handled for the most part, depending on where you are, at the municipal level, and so that makes our job actually quite easy. And we will work with the local municipal sheriff's departments, who in most jurisdictions actually are responsible for rescue, and we'll organize the response with them. And if they need additional support, which we sometimes provide, although most sheriff's departments are adequately resourced, we help them and we coordinate, with the individual who needs rescue, and sometimes their families and next of kin, depending on the severity of the incident that's occurred.
So this would be a member of your club who's had this fall and broken their leg. Is it a club? I mean, how is it set up?
Yeah, it would be a member of ours, so a global rescue member anywhere in the world that does have this kind of a problem, and so that individual can contact us, and we would then respond.
So for real adventurers, this is, I'm sure, a must-have, isn't it? Those people who go to some of the real crazy places on Earth. Is there a financial rationale to do this for people who are hiking trails?
Oh, absolutely. And we have hikers, many hikers in the United States, Canada, North America, but also all over the world who buy our services. And the reason is that obviously you can hike somewhere, in hours or days,
Sure.
and be so far off the beaten path that it's, there's no ground vehicle that could easily come and get you. And as soon as the rotor blade starts spinning, jet fuel starts getting burned, things get very, very expensive.
I agree.
It's not uncommon for these aircraft to cost upwards of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 an hour to operate. And so you do the math, you not only have to deploy the helicopter in, it also has to fly back with you. And so if you're an hour from base, that's really 2, or if you're 2 hours, you're really 4. So it's very easy for these rescues to cost tens and sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that is a very significant financial burden, I think, for most people to have to bear.
I'm sure. I'm just trying to. While you're speaking, this hasn't taken the direction I was expecting it to take at all. By the way, but this is fascinating. So there's a hiker out there, and he's in trouble, and he doesn't have your membership. He will then need to call up the local services if possible. How would that differ to what you do?
Well, in this country, dialing 911 and then calling us, or calling us and then dialing 911, it's a very similar circumstance that results from those phone calls.
Right.
In many cases, it would be the same rescuers who are engaged, but
Okay.
the financial responsibility for the rescue might fall on the hiker themselves.
Right.
Also, once the rescue is complete, let's say you've traveled somewhere, you could be from California and you're hiking the AT in Maine or in Georgia.
Sure.
If you're very severely injured, what happens then? You could end up in a hospital in Georgia
Right.
or in Maine, and you may not want to receive, if you do have a very serious injury or illness, you may not want to stay there. And
No.
there is no health insurance that would cover your voluntary transport back to California for your treatment. So you could find yourself actually hospitalized in
Sure.
one of those states, for weeks or months. And we see that in the United States and in North America, but we also see it internationally, where people, for instance, are, they're trekking in Nepal, or they're hiking in Europe, and something happens. And with our membership, you have the mechanism to be flown back, either via commercial aircraft or even in a private medevac aircraft, to your home,
Right.
to your home hospital of choice. So it's not just getting from the trail, it's getting from the hospital that you were brought to from the trail, and then ultimately to your home hospital and or your home.
So repatriation is part of the membership. I hesitate to ask what the cost of membership is. I don't know whether you're happy to give that out, or is it? And does it depend upon the risk factors involved? In other words, if somebody's just says, "I'm going to do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail," or let's say the Pacific Crest Trail, because there are a lot more potentially dangerous places on the Pacific Crest Trail, more isolated places, let's say. And could they join for 6 months, or how does it work? How does that work?
So, Steve, you'll be probably pleased to hear that our memberships are pretty affordable, and they are designed for adventurous travelers in mind. And because of that, there actually is no change. There is no difference in the cost for activities. So you could be going.
You could go and be really crazy if you like.
You could be going hiking. You could be going, hang gliding. You could be doing anything, and the cost is the same. And actually, our membership started $119 for 7 days. You can buy an annual membership for $329 for an individual, and that's for field rescue and evacuation for medical reasons. If you were going to a place where you had concerns about security, so let's say you were concerned that there was the possibility of civil unrest or government instability or an Arab Spring kind of situation or a natural disaster occurring, you might want to put our security add-on into the membership, and that would roughly double the price. So for about $650, you'd get a whole year of membership and coverage for these sorts of events.
That is a bargain. I was in insurance all my life, which is hard for me to even contemplate. But I was in insurance all my life, and I know the odds, as it were. That is a real good value. So, and I wasn't intending to do this part of the show this way. And I was really talking more about appropriate insurance for hikers and backpackers, and whether or not what sort of policy they need. Do you get involved with any of that at all?
We do. So we're not an insurance company, but we have some partners who are insurance companies.
Right. Okay.
And they cover the kinds of things that you might expect them to cover, such as medical expenses. So Global Rescue will transport you from anywhere in the world home and right out of the field. But what we won't do is cover your hospital expenses or any of the trip costs that you might have incurred and not been able to take advantage of, or your lost luggage or those sorts of things.
Sure.
Travel insurance is really designed to do that. And we recommend that people, if they're concerned about their financial exposure when they travel and hike and do these sorts of activities, that they get travel insurance, so that not only are their medical expenses covered, but also the cost of the trip. Let's say, for instance, you've got something on your bucket list, you've saved up for it. It's going to cost, several $1,000s.
Sure.
And 2 days before you're supposed to leave, you break your leg. Well, you can't go to the tour operator or the travel agency and expect them to refund the cost of the trip. But if you had travel insurance, you actually would be able to claim that, and the cost of the trip would be refunded to you, courtesy of the travel insurer. which is a
Yeah.
very nice feature.
Absolutely, yes. And this, but there are a number of parameters around that, obviously, and there are conditions associated. So I wonder if you can talk to the type of valuable insurance that hikers really should be considering, and also about what the risks they should actually be thinking about when they start planning their hike.
Well, that largely depends obviously on the part of the world that they're going to, right? It's very
Let's go. Let's just go AT right now. Let's say
okay.
somebody wants to go on the AT, as you say, lives in California, and was thinking to go on the AT. So what would you think they should be looking for?
Well, there's really two things. And the first is to separate in your mind rescue and evacuation from traditional travel insurance.
Sure.
So I think anyone that goes more than 100 miles from home, and that's where our memberships start covering you, without some mechanism for being transported home and rescued, I don't think that they're well prepared. So I would recommend that they buy one of our memberships, and if they're going on an AT hike, they would want to probably get an annual membership because they'll probably be out there for some number of months at a time. So we would recommend that. And then the second thing that I would recommend is take a close look at your health insurance and your medical insurance. Make sure that your medical insurance would cover you for whatever might happen to you on the trail in those states that you would be hiking through.
That's an important point as well, the states, isn't it?
Absolutely, because you might be part of an HMO in California that covers you very, very well in California, but when you get to Georgia or Maine or some other place, it's not going to cover you. And if you fall and break your leg or get really sick or there's something that happens, you could have tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills that wouldn't be covered, and that would be just an awful outcome as a result.
So what should somebody do in that circumstance then? What's available for them?
For very little money, usually less than 5% of the cost of your trip, you can actually purchase a travel insurance. We sell some of the travel insurance from our partners on our website. You can buy travel insurance that would cover up to $100,000 in medical expenses.
So that augments your current your HMO policy in California. In other words, that's basically what it does, isn't it?
Absolutely, it would cover you for any of the medical expenses that you would incur in any of the states that you would be hiking through. And the nice thing is most of these travel insurance policies, they also cover you for, let's say you wanted to hike the entire thing but only got halfway through because you did get sick. Yeah. And you had incurred plane flight costs and other kinds of costs, hotel costs that weren't cancelable. You could claim those against the travel insurance policy and actually be reimbursed for those if something did happen, which is also a very nice feature. Plus, if your gear were damaged, stolen, or lost in some way, you could claim that as well. So you'd really be very well covered.
Absolutely, no offense, but this was never meant to be a commercial for Global Rescue. However, I think you're saying your website will be able to give the various solutions that should be there or could be there.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's valuable. So I'm totally happy with that. So that's going to be globalrescue.com, is it?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, one other thing I want to ask about. Now, having been in the insurance business, and so again, I find it hard to believe I was in it for 44 years, but
wow.
The market always changes and normally throws up a policy that hits all the sweet spots. Do you think that with the growing outdoor industry, which it is massively growing, it's going to be met by the insurance carriers? Because my experience is normally the insurance carriers come up with a policy that people want to buy. That's really what they do. Is it continue to develop in terms of insurance terms as far as you see?
It's funny, since we're not an insurance company, but we really wanted an insurance partner for many years. And it took us a long time to find one that we thought was comprehensive enough for the activities that our customer base, which tends to be very adventurous and active. It took us a long time to find one that had the right policy and that we thought would actually do what they're supposed to do, which is to pay claims, which
that was chestnut.
Right? So if you're not paying claims, then your bottom line, the insurance company's bottom line looks very good, but their customers aren't very happy, and our customers wouldn't be very happy. So it took us a long time to find that right partner, and we found a group that does cover all of the things that our customers are engaged in. From hiking the AT to we're very, very active in Nepal, for instance. During the Himalayan climbing season, we did more than 100 rescues in the Himalaya this year, more than half of them off of Everest, actually, itself. So, and all of those kinds of activities are covered. So, it's an indication that yes, the insurance community is stepping up and recognizing. I think that a lot of travelers are actually going to places and doing things that they might not have done, 10 or 15 years ago.
Exactly.
And they have modified their policies and they have been stepping up. But again, it's important not to confuse the service that's provided around a rescue and an evacuation,
of course,
with
yes,
the actual financial protections that are afforded by the insurance policy. And those are really two different animals.
Yes, but what you've done is a natural corollary of your business to get an insurance partner, because it fills in those gaps, doesn't it? That you do one thing and then you get a good insurance policy that does the other stuff to do with your activity, and then you've got the complete package, haven't you?
That's exactly right. And if you are not worried about potentially being out the money of the trip, you can forego the travel insurance component. I would not recommend foregoing the membership, because it's one thing to be out the money for losing your luggage or having your trip interrupted. It's another not to have access to the critical services that you might want to have access to if you were involved in an accident or become seriously ill.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you talking to us. It wasn't where I was expecting to go today. But I think actually it gives us the answers that I think a lot of people have been asking me over several months of doing this show, or several years of doing this show. And I really appreciate the time you've given us today.
Steve, it's my pleasure.
Thanks very much indeed. Speak to you again sometime.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. Wasn't that awesome? I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's globalrescue.com. For those of you wondering what to do with insurance for your big trip, you should really look into what these guys have to offer. By the way, I'm not getting paid to say that. Now it's back to Deanna and a recording made just 2 days ago on October the 2nd. I actually recorded her soon after she returned in July, yet could I find it? Absolutely not. So, ever the good sport, Deanna put up with my stupid questions for a second time. The good thing about being older, of course, is that I had zero recollection of what I'd asked her before, so it was all new to me. Here's Deanna. Okay, we're back on with Deanna. Hi, Deanna. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I saw some of your YouTube videos on the Camino, and obviously I want to know how it went. So how different was your hike this time when you went with your boys, as contrasted with the previous Camino that you did?
Well, the first Camino I did, which was last year, it was a very spiritual experience because I was able to just be on my own and go at my own pace, do what I wanted to do, and just be me. And I could stop in all of the little churches and cathedrals along the way and just sit there and pray and do whatever I wanted to do in there, which was cry, pray, do all that. And I was lonelier this time because my 16-year-old son didn't want a spiritual experience forced on him. And really, who wants a spiritual experience forced on them, right?
Right.
He didn't want one of those. So he didn't want to stop in all the churches and the cathedrals and all that. And so I would sneak in toward the end, the after the Meseta, I would sneak in and spend my own time because they were a little bit more independent then. But it was still a spiritual experience for me, but it wasn't, the taking time to sit and cry. And I obviously wasn't as lonely.
Right.
We were also with people. There was our friends that we met along the way, Laura and Adam. And Laura didn't want to go into any of the churches either because of her religion. She didn't want to offend her religion by going into a church of another religion.
What was her religion then?
She was Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And I'm a Mormon, and then we were with an atheist, and then we were with a Christian. So there's a wide variety, and we met Laura and Adam on the way.
But for me, I'm definitely going to go into churches, and I'm not in the least bit religious. But I love the architecture. I love the feeling of being in there as well. Mm-hmm. There is a certain spirituality that I certainly absorb when I go into churches, and I guess it's a depth of the ages you feel once you get into church.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel anyway, and I really appreciate that. There's this atmosphere that descends upon you that I really enjoy. Just sitting there and normally in the cool of the church. I did that often when I worked in New York. New York summers are brutally hot.
Mm-hmm.
I would go into the beautifully cold stone church on, I think it was 6th Avenue, and I really enjoyed that part. The whole thing of just sitting quietly and just thinking. That's what I used to enjoy.
Right. And I'm not like I said, I'm not Catholic. I'm a Mormon, but we still believe in Christ, and we consider ourselves Christian. But I would go in there, and it would be a spiritual experience for me, because I was more leaning on the faith of the people who've worshipped there for centuries, for the
Right.
people, because some of these are little tiny, out of the way churches. They're not the big cathedrals with all the
Yes.
gold and all the show,
Yeah.
but these little tiny churches, it's like people, the villagers probably helped build those, and they built them because they loved God,
Yeah.
And so I was kind of leaning on the faith of the people, who built and worshiped there over the centuries. And it didn't matter if they believed something differently than I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's that path that's been trod all those years by
Mm-hmm.
pilgrims, but it's for people who believe and don't believe. So I'm so looking forward to going to a lot of those churches, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly those small ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you learn more about your sons on this trip, or did they react in a way that you'd imagine their characters would respond before you went? Because you knew what they were like. You brought them up, for God's sake. Sorry, you brought them up, so you know how they are. Did you think they would react in one way, and yet did they surprise you in how they reacted?
Well, we went on the Camino. It was my husband's inspiration that he thought that I should take my boys, because it was such a good experience for me the year before. So he thought, especially my 16-year-old son, would benefit from it. And so we had some expectations of how he would act, and he honestly didn't want to go. He wanted to stay home
Right.
and work at a pizza parlor. And
As you do.
yeah. Yeah, right. And it makes no sense to me, but it made sense to him. And but he was he was fun to be with. I think he acted similarly to what I expected, but the 13-year-old, he was different, and I learned about him more. He was just cool.
Really? Yeah, nice. What a nice thing to call your 13-year-old kid.
I know. He would go up, on the trail, and walk ahead of me. And then he would just sit and wait, because that was our rule, that he had to be with one of us.
Right,
But he would just wait for me. But he would, sit on his back like a turtle, like on the back of his backpack. Ended up cracking the shell that was on his backpack because of that, but he didn't want to replace it. But anyway, he would just sit there, and he would wear bandanas and sunglasses, and it was, and then he would go and stir up chess games in the albergues at night. I'd be like, tired and just wanting to chill, and he wanted to be social, and I didn't even realize how social he was.
Wasn't that good though? What a great thing for him to. So he met all sorts of people when he was out there.
Oh
And
yeah.
he absorbed the experience. I mean, at 13 also, you're growing so fast, aren't you? So I'm sure even that short period of time, you saw him develop as a character.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
true. And then in the beginning, they were slower than I was, and they were struggling, and there were tears. One of them had tears because the shoes just weren't working, and we ended up buying a new pair of shoes in Zubiri, which is very common. There's a really good outfitter there, by the way.
For good reason, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not too far from the beginning, and people realize their gear isn't up to par. But anyway, so we got him a new pair of shoes, but they were really slow, and they were not enjoying it. And then we met Adam and Laura, who are just, brought the joie de vivre into the Camino for them. And I saw the boys and interact with them and hang out with Adam. And Adam would stop at every little creek or, lake or anything, and, jump in or get his hair wet. He would, notice every little flower. And I saw the boys just gravitate toward Adam, and learn from him and grow as people because of the people they met on Camino. And by the end, these boys were, just, I mean, they could have done the Camino 3 times in the amount of time that it took me. So they got stronger physically and emotionally, and I think, especially for Daniel, the 13-year-old, he grew spiritually too. So anyway,
Really?
I'm rambling on here.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. So they developed the hike. Did they get? And they got into the rhythm of the hike because they met this guy and this couple, and they enjoyed that part of it, the social side of it. And so, do you see this? Do you see these changes? Because you obviously meet other people down the trail. I know one of the things we talk about on the show often is the rhythm of hiking.
Mhm.
Did you all get into the rhythm of that? So you knew it was the job. You got up every morning, you set out, you did a certain number of miles, and you get into a pace, don't you, which becomes comfortable for you, doesn't it?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. I was just reading, trying to, remember some things, and I was reading, some Facebook posts that I posted, and one of the things I read was from last year, and I wrote down what I did every day. You basically get up, you pack your pack, you have
Yes.
breakfast, and hope you have a bowel movement before you leave the albergue so that you
Nice.
don't have
Yeah.
to go on the trail. And then you walk, and then you stop, and you eat, at a cafe. And sometimes you stop in the churches, and sometimes, then you find an albergue, and then you hopefully get a nap, and then you have to
Yeah.
wait until after 7 for dinner. And I mean, there is an absolute rhythm. And part of our rhythm became looking for ice cream.
Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. Did
Yeah.
any of you? Did you? I know, and this is one of the things I'm slightly worried about, that I'm not going to lose weight because I need to lose weight. Because you do so much exercise, you still eat a lot anyway. Do you find that because you've got access to quite excessive food, I guess, and booze and stuff like that, that there's a chance to lose weight, or do people come back heavier than they started out?
I lost 15 pounds the
Oh my
first year,
gosh!
and I
Wow.
lost just 10 pounds this year because with the boys, I had to make sure they had enough calories. I mean, I have this little scrawny 13-year-old,
Yes.
and I saw him lose weight, and that scared me. So I
Oh
was trying to
wow.
feed him all the time. And my 16-year-old actually agreed to go because he wanted to lose some weight, and he wasn't fat, but
Right.
kids.
Right.
But anyway,
Yes,
and
of
he
course.
ended up losing 20 pounds. And
Wow.
I gave them um, every day, besides the meals, the regular meals. They also had a big bag of chips, and that would last for about 2 days, but one of the large bags of chips, right? Like potato
Yeah.
chips. And
Right.
because they have different flavors over there. So we tried all the different flavors and ended up liking the ketchup ones the best. Anyway, and then we get a candy bar, the Milka candy bars, the big ones, and they were only €1. So of course we had to have one of those every day. And then we'd stop for Cola Cow every day, which is like hot chocolate.
Wow.
We brought a
Wow.
huge, like 10-pound bag back, and we have these huge sandwiches and things like that. But I mean, yeah, we ate really, really well, and really a lot of fattening things like cheese and
And you
oh,
still lost weight.
oh
You
yeah, and
still lost
they
weight.
sell goat cheese by the road. It's like this is like a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing.
It's silly not to, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So once you got there, you got to San Diego. Was that an exciting moment for them? Did they feel, or once it was over, were they over it? Were they ready to go home and they were done by then?
Um, I was more emotional than they were, and I haven't put all my videos up because I have a problem. My pictures got all scrambled in different
Oh,
orders, so that's why I'm behind.
all right.
But anyway,
Right.
but no, so I videoed it going in and thinking it's going to be all emotional, and the 16-year-old was nonplussed. He's like, "Okay, we're here." The 13-year-old was kind of
Of
happy
course he
that we
did.
were there. Yeah, by the end, he was just like, okay, I'm done. I've done 500 miles. Okay, let's. And we walked 400 and we biked 100. So just so
Oh,
you know.
really? That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Did some biking. Yeah,
So
that's right.
and I had kind of hoped that we would have time to um, walk to
Finisterre.
Finisterre.
Mm-hmm.
But it took us longer on the bike than we had planned, and so anyway,
Right.
but I was like in tears, and they were like, okay, and they didn't even. By the time we got there, they didn't even want to take the bus to Finisterre. They're like, nope,
We're done.
we're done. Let's just go and have some hot chocolate and churros and in Santiago, and
Oh, dear.
and then after a day in Santiago, they were more excited. So we took our pictures and things, like right
Right.
before we went to the plane, and they were happy and cool then. I think it was almost overwhelming to get there. Anticlimactic.
Isn't it the realization they've done so many miles? I think that's a great thing, don't you? For them
Yeah,
to suddenly realize that.
right. But like even it's anticlimactic a little bit. And last year, when I did it by myself, I sat in the cathedral and just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. After I didn't get to see
Yeah.
the smoky thing swing. I forgot the name of it. I didn't but anyway,
Smoky things.
the smoky thing.
I know what you mean.
You know what I
Good
mean?
one.
The
I know
incense.
exactly what you mean. Yeah, that's
2
right. Yeah.
years in a row, I didn't get to see that thing.
See the smoky thing.
The smoky thing. But anyway, I sat in the cathedral after, the after mass, and I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I'm totally making a fool out of myself. But I realized it was because it was all about the journey. And I was actually sad that the journey was over. I was so thankful for the journey. And getting to Santiago, it's not about getting to Santiago. It's about all the steps on the way and all the people you meet and all the albergues and all the mountains and all of the, the flat parts and everything you learn about yourself and all of the conversations with God. And so getting to Santiago sometimes it's not, it's not like this woohoo thing. It's just, okay.
It's a completion of the journey, of the journey, and the journey is, for me, interesting that, because I always thought it was the journey, and I think it probably will be for me when I do the Camino. But for the AT, it was a journey for me for about the first 1,700 miles. But after that, I was ready to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for the destination, so I was so smashed up, and I really feel that, I almost feel like the AT is about 800 miles too long. Because I was kind of done, but I was so looking forward to the picture. I just couldn't give up, and I was so looking forward to the White Mountains. So this is different. So if you look back on this hike and you look back on the hike you did last time, the Camino you did last time, if you could only have done one of them, which one would it be?
Oh my gosh! Luckily, I don't have to choose.
You're right, you don't.
Because the first one was so spiritually, emotionally, and physically profound. And it came at a time of my life when my marriage and my kids and all of that were just, I was struggling with them, let's say.
Yeah.
And I needed it so much, and it helped me as a person. But this one, I mean, I couldn't give this one up either, because I was upset at the end for the last week because I was realizing we were getting to Santiago, and I was like, no, I don't want it to be over, because there is never going to be another time probably that I have so much concentrated time with my boys. What parent is with their boys or with their children from the time they get up to the time they go to sleep, and then sleeping in the same room with them, in bunk beds, and just that experience.
Well, funny enough, I've got to follow on to that then, because I noticed recently you posted in Facebook and about the prospect, the prospect of being an empty nester. And I know you still got kids at home. How did this journey bring those thoughts forward in your mind? Because it really clearly came through. It was a really long and really, really interesting post. Did this was that thought process part of it? About the fact you spent all that time with your kids and soon they'll be all be gone?
That's been, yeah, it's kind of been this whole year, and
Right.
that's part of it. And I think it's because I have 8 children. And
Yeah.
when the first one went, it was sad, and then the second
But you
one,
still have 7 left.
it's like 5, I still have 7. Yeah, I still have 7 at home. I mean, I love my oldest daughter, and she just came to visit with her boyfriend. And that was why I wrote the post, was because, I was having
Right.
to say goodbye to her again.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the second one leaves, and it's harder. And the boys are my youngest. And it's realizing how short of a time I have left with them. And it's like, okay, so I'm 55 now, right? And I realize it's like your life is like a roll of toilet paper. And at the beginning, it goes slowly, but towards the end of the roll, it goes faster and faster and faster, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's like, it just, the last part of the roll goes really fast. And I feel like
Yes.
I'm at the last part of the roll in my parenting, and it's just going too fast. And I realize that the last 5 years I have with Daniel, the youngest, is going to go by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Whereas my oldest, I didn't realize that 5 years seemed like forever, But
Sure.
so, yeah, those kinds of thoughts, I think my maturity, let's say, or in my old age, I am realizing and appreciating those moments. So when I walk into Santiago and it's the end, I'm happy
I
to
thought
be
you
there.
might. I thought you might. I really thought. I did think about it. So as soon as you wrote, well, as soon as I read what you'd written, I then thought back to that how you would have finished with your kids and finished Santiago with your kids. And I wonder whether that might have impacted or in some way brought that thought forward in your mind.
Right.
Now, as you know, I'm going away. In fact, I'm going a couple of days' time, do the Camino myself. Any tips you could share with me that might help me?
Oh my goodness. Well, take care of your feet, which is, every hiker knows that.
Yeah,
And don't hurry.
Yeah, I think that's important.
How much time do you have?
I've got as long as I want. I've got as long as I want. But my niece wants to be done in about 35 days. How long were you, by the way?
Well, because we took the terrible, awful bicycles across the Meseta, which the boys loved and I hated. We did it, and I think it was 28 or 29 days.
All right.
So
35
really,
should be okay, then, shouldn't it?
yeah, you'll have plenty of time. There's a thing, you want to take time with the Camino. You want to see the big things, the cathedrals, but you also want to notice the flowers, and my first Camino, there were a lot of butterflies. I don't know what you'll see in the fall because I haven't done it in the fall, but you want to notice those.
It's a different time. It's a different time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like the idea of the fact that every way you hike, like the Appalachian Trail, changes different times you see it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to doing that again as well, because it will, even though I'll be going about the same time, I would just see different things. So I'm looking forward to that.
And stop in the cafes.
We won't need any encouragement to do that.
No,
I need any encouragement there.
That's a social life. It's the Camino spirit. You'll be with other pilgrims. Take your shoes off. Have a colacao.
Cool.
Have a colacao for me.
I will. I will definitely I have a colacao for you, and I'll raise a glass. We'll probably put something in it as well. I suspect some brandy or something like that. I imagine we're going to do something. But but thanks for coming back and telling us about it, because this is going to be the first of my Camino shows. The music, this is a Mighty Blue show, but the music at the beginning will be my Camino music. So this is the first of them as I head off next week. So I appreciate you coming back and telling us all about it.
Oh, it was great. It was great to relive it, and to remember. So
lovely.
Thank you.
Okay. All right then. Speak to you soon then.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Isn't she a delightful woman? No wonder Dixie embraced her. As I said before, Deanna was so nervous about doing these interviews, but I thought she gave really thoughtful answers, and she's a great mum. So that's it. Normal service will be resumed sometime in November, with several regular interviews already recorded. I'll be writing a couple of books in Europe after my Camino, and you'll still get episodes of the show on a Thursday morning, starting next Thursday, the 11th of October, along with Monday episodes starting on the 15th of October. I hope that you join me on the way. Nos vemos la próxima semana.